What if your cat wasn't just a pet, but a message? Not a coincidence, not a cute creature you happen to adopt, but a soul assigned to your life with sacred intent. We live in a world that has forgotten how to read symbols. We dismiss a cat's stare, their silence at midnight, or their sudden arrival in the middle of our darkest season as randomness. But ancient cultures didn't think that way. The Egyptians saw cats as keepers of the boundary between the seen and the unseen. Carl Jung called them projections of our unconscious, the anima that walks beside us in fur. Edgar Cayce once suggested that animals, especially cats, carry vibrational frequencies aligned with our soul path. So here's the question we must ask. What is your cat trying to tell you that you've stopped listening to? If your cat begins to appear in your dreams, sits on your chest during your heaviest nights, or simply walks into your life when everything else has fallen apart, don't ignore it. These moments are not behavioral quirks. They may be spiritual appointments. Because when the soul calls for help, sometimes the universe answers with a cat. Let me show you why. Possibility. The divine timing. Why cats appear when you need them most. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's unraveling. When death brushes close. When heartbreak breaks open something deeper than grief. When the meaning of it all begins to dissolve into silence. And in those moments, something happens. A cat appears. Quietly. Unannounced. As if summoned, not by your will, but by something older, deeper and wiser than anything you can name. You didn't plan it. You didn't go looking for a cat, but it found you. Perhaps it was hiding under your porch one rainy morning, soaked and trembling, or maybe it wandered into your garden the day after you buried someone you loved. Some viewers might remember a story that circulated quietly online. A woman in Oregon lost her mother to cancer, and in the very same week, a small gray kitten began showing up on her windowsill every day. Always at the same hour her mother had called her. The kitten meowed 3 times, then sat in complete stillness. It didn't eat, didn't leave. Eventually, the woman opened the door, and the kitten walked in. And never left. Coincidence? Or something more? To the logical mind, it's just happenstance, the kind of thing that makes a cute story over coffee. But to those attuned to the unseen, it feels like synchronicity, a concept Carl Jung defined as a meaningful coincidence with no causal relationship, yet profoundly significant to the observer. In Jungian language, the cat is an archetype, a carrier of ancient energy, often feminine, intuitive, silent, and transformational. The cat doesn't just arrive to comfort, it arrives to awaken. Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, suggested in his trance readings that animals, particularly cats, exist not merely as physical companions, but as vibrational mirrors. They match your energy. They respond to your soul. And sometimes they arrive precisely when your spiritual immune system is about to collapse. In Cayce's words, the cat is a silent healer. It knows before you do when your balance is disturbed. Why is this important? Because for so many people, especially those who have endured profound loss or trauma, the appearance of a cat can feel like the first thread of healing. Not through words, not through therapy, but through presence, a presence that is neither demanding nor judging. Just watching, just staying, just being. This is not random. This is resonance. You see, in the energetic world, everything is vibration. When a human heart fractures, when a spirit begins to wander, that vibration changes. It becomes low, heavy, and difficult. But nature, in its mysterious mercy, often sends in balancing frequencies, and cats, with their uncanny feline intuition, are natural harmonizers. They feel the ripples of your pain before even you do. And sometimes they are drawn to it, not out of pity, but because they recognize something sacred in your suffering. We often think we choose our cats, but what if they choose us? What if they are not just animals, but spirit animals in the truest sense, sent not to be tamed, but to guide us back to something forgotten, something buried beneath logic, trauma, or exhaustion? Ask yourself, when did your cat arrive in your life? What was falling apart? Who had just left? What version of you was breaking down so that something more honest could emerge? So many viewers, especially women in the later stages of life, describe the same phenomenon. My cat came when my life fell apart. One woman shared in a letter, "After my divorce, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Then, one day, a ginger cat followed me from the grocery store parking lot to my car. She sat on the hood, refused to leave. She saved me without ever saying a word." And perhaps that's the deeper truth here. Healing does not always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in the form of a purr at your feet when the world feels cold. Sometimes it's in the warmth of fur curled against your side as you cry into your pillow. Sometimes it's just an unblinking gaze that says, "I see you. I'm still here." The lesson? When a cat shows up, unplanned, unexpected, don't brush it off as chance. Ask instead, what is being healed in me right now? What has called this soul to my side? Because in the stillness of that question, something sacred stirs. The cat doesn't arrive because you're ready. It arrives because you're not. And that's the exact moment the soul begins its return. And once we begin to understand that these arrivals are orchestrated by something greater, we start to listen differently. We no longer see cats as ornaments of comfort, but as quiet prophets, reminding us that even in pain we are not forgotten. But that's only one layer of the mystery. Because while a cat may arrive at the perfect moment, its message does not always come in words. Sometimes it comes in symbols, repetition, a meow in the stillest hour of the night, a stare into what looks like space. And that leads us into a much deeper realm of listening, one that modern science still struggles to explain, but your soul will recognize instantly. Let's go further. Let's explore how cats speak when the world has forgotten how to hear. When cats speak through symbols, the hidden language of the spirit world. Long before the age of words, there was the language of the soul, a language not spoken, but felt, a language of symbols, archetypes, and gestures from the unseen. And in this ancient form of communication, cats have always been fluent. You may have noticed it without realizing. The soft sound of your cat meowing at exactly 3:03 a.m., 3 nights in a row. Their sudden fixation with a blank wall, a silent corner, or a space that feels heavy. The repeated circling of a door, the stillness they hold when someone enters the room, their body frozen, eyes wide as if watching something only they can perceive. To us, these moments seem strange, even amusing. But in the symbolic world, they are messages, portals, warnings, invitations. Cats don't speak English. They speak energy. And when a cat acts in a way that feels off-pattern, they are trying to draw your attention, not just to their world, but to yours, to something shifting below the surface of your consciousness. According to Carl Jung, symbols are transformers of energy, bridging the unconscious and the conscious. Cats, in their silence, carry these symbols through behavior. What seems like randomness to the rational mind is often a spiritual nudge, a prompt to look deeper. Take, for example, the phenomenon of cats meowing consistently between 3 and 4 a.m., what many spiritual traditions call the veil hour, when the material world is said to be thinnest and communication with the spirit realm most possible. In various indigenous traditions, this window is when ancestors speak, when dreams are most lucid, and when intuitive beings, like cats, become guardians of thresholds. A woman in Vermont once shared a haunting story. Every night after her husband passed, her cat would sit at the base of the stairs and cry at precisely 3:33 a.m. Not before, not after. For 49 nights. On the 50th night, the crying stopped. She later found out that in Tibetan traditions, the soul's journey takes 49 days. Coincidence or closure? In Egyptian mysticism, cats were revered not just as protectors of the home, but as gatekeepers between realms. They were believed to escort souls into the afterlife, their eyes containing the light of Ra, the sun god, and their stillness said to be a form of divine listening. To this day, the shape of a cat's eye is seen as a spiritual icon. The slit pupil, expanding and contracting like a cosmic dial, tuned to frequencies humans can no longer hear. And science, curiously, is beginning to catch up. Feline vision includes the ability to perceive ultraviolet light, something invisible to the human eye. What we perceive as an empty room, a blank space, may be illuminated in wavelengths to which we are blind. So when your cat stares into nothing, it may be watching everything. This is the symbolic communication of the feline spirit. Subtle, repetitive, poetic. They speak through ritual, rhythm, and intuition. If they circle the same spot 3 times before sleeping, if they bring you the same kind of object again and again, if they disappear every afternoon and return at dusk, they are writing with invisible ink. And it's your spirit, not your logic, that must read it. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious speaks in images. And cats, they are moving images, myth in motion. Every flick of the tail, every tilt of the ear, every deliberate pause before stepping forward, it all means something. You may have heard stories from hospice workers who describe dying patients being visited by cats who sit on their beds for hours before death. The cats do not meow. They do not move. They simply hold space, as if offering safe passage for the soul. A living symbol of transition, of endings that are not ends at all. What's the lesson here? That silence can speak. Those patterns are not accidents. That your cat is not just a creature in your home, but a translator between dimensions. Their behaviors may seem small, a paw at your shoulder during meditation, a sudden retreat from a guest you trust, a refusal to enter one particular room, but small signs often carry the weight of eternity. And here is the danger. To ignore the symbol is to miss the message. Many people dismiss the strange behavior of cats as coincidence, eccentricity, or superstition. But this dismissal is not rational. It is forgetfulness. A forgetting of how the soul speaks. A forgetting of how the world once worked before we drowned it in language. If your cat is trying to show you something, through repetition, through ritual, through presence, then perhaps it is not your pet acting strangely. Perhaps it is your own consciousness that needs to catch up. Because sometimes a cat's meow is not a demand. It's an echo, a pulse from the spirit world knocking on the walls of your waking life. And when we begin to honor these symbolic moments, when we take note of the timing, the texture, the energy, something shifts. We move from doubt to devotion, from confusion to communion. And from that place, we begin to ask deeper questions. Why does your cat recoil when certain people enter? Why do they stare at places no one else dares to look? What do they see that you've forgotten how to believe in? To explore those mysteries, we must move further into the realm of spirit animals, energetic protection, and the unseen forces our cats seem to guard against. Because behind every strange behavior is often a sacred purpose, one that could save not only your peace of mind, but your soul. Let's now enter that realm and explore the hidden spiritual mission of the cat in your life. ChatGPT Terraport mission of cats. Guardians of your inner world. Some animals walk beside us, but others walk within us. guarding the sacred rooms of our being that even we have forgotten how to enter. Among these guardians, cats hold a place of mystery unlike any other. They are not here merely to curl beside us or chase shadows across the room. They are watchers, witnesses, and for many, whether they know it or not, they are soul protectors. In the language of spirit, cats often come into our lives not to entertain, but to anchor. We are drawn to threshold moments, times when something within us is breaking, transforming, or preparing to be born. They are not here to fix you. They are here to accompany you, with a patience only the soul understands. Carl Jung often spoke of the self, the deepest, most unified layer of the psyche, and how, in moments of suffering, our ego splits away from it, leaving us feeling scattered, lost, and spiritually unprotected. But the psyche, Jung taught, seeks reintegration, and animals, particularly cats, can serve as symbols, even agents, of this healing. They guide us back inward, not by speaking, but by simply staying. Let me tell you a story. In a hospice center in Colorado, there was a black cat named Mira, who had a strange reputation. She would enter a room and quietly lie beside a patient, and within 24 to 48 hours, that person would pass. At first, the staff saw it as eerie. Then, as the pattern repeated dozens of times, they began to see her differently. Mira never seemed distressed. Instead, she exuded a calm presence. One nurse described her as a velvet boat ferrying souls to the other side. No one taught Mira to do this. She simply knew. She would appear when the veil between life and death grew thin, not to fear it, but to hold space for it, to remind the departing and the living that death is not the end, but a sacred return. This is not an isolated case. Around the world, stories echo of cats who refuse to leave the side of the dying, who meow softly at twilight as if calling to someone unseen, who watch over their humans with an intensity that feels beyond this world. Edgar Cayce believed animals have a soul vibration that is often entangled with ours, not karmically, but energetically. When one soul suffers an imbalance, the other responds. He suggested that certain animals choose to be near us lifetime after lifetime, not for pleasure, but out of a spiritual promise made long ago. And cats, being solitary yet deeply observant, are particularly suited for this role. They do not rush. They do not rescue. They remain. But spiritual guardianship is not always about death. Sometimes it's about the small deaths we face daily, the death of courage, the fading of hope, the moments when we are spiritually starved and don't even know it. In these moments, cats serve as subtle mirrors. Their behavior becomes a metaphor for what we must reawaken in ourselves. A woman once shared, "I had just survived a suicide attempt. I didn't tell anyone. I just went home." That night, my cat, who normally slept in the hallway, climbed onto my chest and refused to move. For hours, she stared at me like she was keeping me here. I cried so hard I forgot I was numb. She brought me back, not with a gesture, just by refusing to leave. Lasted, that is not a coincidence. That is intervention. If your cat follows you into every room, watches you meditate, growls at the same guest you keep making excuses for, ask yourself, what is this soul protecting me from? What does it know that I have forgotten to trust? Cats are not random companions. They are often spirit animals, whose mission is not just to walk with you, but to walk through you, clearing unseen energies, absorbing anxiety, holding emotional weight so that you don't shatter. Some even believe that cats choose homes not for shelter, but for spiritual alignment. That they are sent where energy is blocked, like sacred acupuncture points, to realign the flow of the household's soul. Their gaze? Penetrating. Their stillness? Instructive. Their sudden disappearances? Often a sign of energetic detox, either yours or theirs. So what is the lesson here? It is this. Your cat may not be your pet at all. They may be your soul's companion, your watcher, your guide.
And the greatest mistake we can make is to reduce them to fur and instincts, when in fact, they are carrying out a spiritual mission that often precedes our awareness of it. Next time you feel something stir inside you when your cat lies across your chest, next time you find them waiting at the door after you've returned from a place that felt off, or when they cry on the night you try to hide your pain, don't ignore it. Sit in that presence. Listen with more than your ears.
And then ask, what part of me needs protection? What part of me has gone quiet? Because when a cat chooses to stay, not just in your home, but in your aura, it is doing something far more ancient than we realize. It is guarding the temple of your becoming. Play. If you've ever felt that your cat sees something in you, something even you've forgotten how to hold, it may be time to listen. Truly, listen. These moments aren't just cute or comforting. They are sacred. If a cat has ever protected your soul, leave a comment below. Share your story, because someone else may be waiting for a sign, and your words might be it. And if this spoke to you, like, subscribe, and join this space of remembrance. You're not just loving a cat, you're being loved through one.